right, everybody, we're at 12:01, so let's go ahead and get started today. I'm sure we'll have more people join us as we go. Dave, if you would put up the flag for us, we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, sir.
All right. Do I have a volunteer for invocation today?
I'll say a prayer.
All right, Earl, thank you.
Lord, we want to come and thank you today for allowing us the opportunity to meet together to find ways to help our community. As we go through a very difficult time in our country right now, we pray that you'll come down and bless us and keep us safe. In Christ's name, amen.
All right, so guests today, I can see we've got Superintendent Klein with us as our speaker. Hello, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Okay. Any announcements today? Earl, did you want to talk about the Redmond Food Projects, the turn-in success that we had, and when the next turn-in is?
As you know, we had some real success, I thought, last collection cycle for the food, and we're working to expand that. Right now, the issue is whether or not we're going to be able to continue to be with the food project, the Redmond Food Project, because they require us to provide some information, names, addresses, emails. It's a handicap that we have, just administrative issue that a lot of people just find time consuming and tedious and really don't want to bother doing it. So the question was raised at the board meeting yesterday, rather than not we could just turn over the entire list that we have for Kiwanis Club, give it to them, and then not have to follow this procedure. We've not felt that the club members would probably want to do that in bulk. So a meeting is set up next week for with Sharan and I to see if the way we can work through that. So that's issue of collecting this information all the time and sending it out, and that we can somehow or another go around that. If not, they're looking at maybe we just do this on our own, and we could purchase some bags and basically run the same program ourselves. But it's something that the need is there, and it's something that we can do. It's easy enough to do, and either we find a solution for the administrative need that they have on their side, or we find another solution. So, but the next collection date is December the 14th. And in my own mind, I have a goal of seeing if we can raise 1,000 pounds of food. That's twice the amount we took in this time. With the economy being what it is and what it's going to become over the next couple of months, the need for food in our community is significant. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? All right. Okay. I know you guys join just for the joke of the day. So what I've got for you today. Woman says to her doctor, "I'm worried about my height, but not my weight." The doctor says, "Well, why is that?" The woman responds, "Well, according to my weight, my height should be 7 feet 8 inches tall."
I like that, Rachel.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Klein, I'm going to hand it over to you as our speaker for today.
Thank you, Rachel. Will I be able to share my screen?
1 second, please. Okay, you're ready.
Thank you. Hey, so thank you for having me today. I'm Dr. Charan Cline, the superintendent of the Redmond School District. I've been here just since July, so I've been enjoying getting to know people the best you can in this kind of environment. But it's a great community. So I'm here today to talk to you about the bond issue, which is on the ballot. You probably all have your ballots right now, and then of course we'll tally that up here in a couple weeks. Now I talked with some of you I know about this in the past, so I'm gonna run through this presentation relatively quickly. I think since last I showed it to Kiwanis, we've got some sketches of what some of the additions in the buildings would look like and such. And then I'll open it up to questions. First about the bond and then about anything else, because I know a lot of people have lots of questions about schools right now and what are we doing and why are we doing it and so on and so forth. So I'll be happy to do both. So first, let me start with the quick bond presentation, and I will I'll run through that, and then we will talk. So. All right, thank you again. So as you know, we've got a bond presentation on the ballot for this election cycle. It's $27.5 million, and it's built to not raise people's taxes. Let me run through the whole thing real quick. So real quick, if everybody remembers, back in 2018, the school district tried to run a bond for $70 million and it lost by a narrow margin. I'm told less than 200 votes, which in this community is pretty squeaky down on the wire on it. So the district heard, and the thing to remember is that, just because we didn't pass that bond didn't mean those problems went away, those construction problems or school problems. So the school readjusted its course. It did some surveys to the community about what people would like. A community task force, bond task force was formed, volunteer community, and it really refined a lot of the goals. We conducted a survey this summer, which told us that 56% of the community would support a $27.5 million bond underneath the goals that we're looking for. So a little bit about a school bond. I get a lot of questions about what this is and why can't I use it to pay teachers, and am I going to use it to pay teachers and that sort of thing. So school bonds, just really quick, is kind of a loan that community takes out to pay for public projects, usually, building city halls and fire stations and schools and that kind of thing. The way Oregon is structured in its history, really those kind of things are a local matter. The operations, because of Ballot Measure 5 and that kind of thing, the operation of the school is the state matter. It's funded from state income taxes and property taxes that go into it, while local facilities are really the response of the local community. You recall before Ballot Measure 5, the entire operation of the school was really local concern. It was all the taxes came from the local area, timber taxes, that sort of thing. So that was a change when that happened back in the early 2000s or 1990s. The bond funds can't be used for programming or staff members. They have to be used for capital projects, what you write them for, a general obligation bond anyway. It's like a loan we take out as a community. We pay it off with interest rates. Why are we doing it now? It seems like a rough time with the way the economy is and COVID out there and all that. Really, we've got a couple different reasons. First, again, those maintenance projects are still out there. These things that are expensive to do. I mean, for example, putting a new roof on Redmond High School costs $1.1 million. The school district has about 1.2 million square foot of buildings that it manages, really a large area. So we're looking to try and get those done. Now, in Redmond, for a bond to pass, we need more voters to vote. We need a bigger, broad base. When we have an election with small issues on, only very dedicated voters vote, if you will. And when you have more of a general election or presidential, more people vote. So Redmond to pass the bond has to have a wider range of voting. So really it only has an opportunity once every 4 years or so. Might be able to get away with a governor's race, but for the most part, it needs to happen as a presidential cycle. The low interest rates right now, the economy is not going great at the moment, but it's also produced an area of low interest rates. This allowed us to refinance an old bond that had about a 5% interest rate down to about 1.5%. And by doing that, we've been able to create a gap in the taxes of about 16 cents. And that 16-cent gap in the taxes is what the school district is running its bond on. And so basically by doing it about 16 cents per thousand of value, it doesn't change what people pay on a yearly basis. And we kind of extend things forward. People have asked me how much money would it save to not pass this for each person. On an average price house in Redmond, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood about $40 a year. That's how much people would save if they don't vote for this bond. So we're also in the position right now, the district kind of won the lottery. The state has this program they call the Awesome Grant, which is really an incentive program to get people to pass bonds and rebuild their local schools. The district has to apply for that. Their names kind of get put in a hat, and the Redmond's name got pulled out this last year, which means that if we're able to pass this bond, we can get this match of $7.6 million. So that's free money that comes to it. We only get that grant if we pass the bond. Okay, this slide basically says the same thing. This little slide illustrates it kind of in its entirety here. The idea being that if with this roughly $35 million project or through it, 23% of it is really done by the state of Oregon. Okay, that's money that's more or less free to the community of Redmond. Now, as many of you will say, well, there's no free money. Yes, that's true. This is money that is spread out across the entire tax base of Oregon. So in effect, what happens is people in the Portland area help pay for the schools here in Redmond, the maintenance and the work through it. So that's why it's nice to try and get this grant if we can get it. So why do we want to do it? Well, we've got a lot of things that need to get done. There's air quality systems that need to get, we've got HVAC systems that need to get replaced. We still have asbestos in some of our schools that either need to get removed or mitigated, so contained somehow. We have communication systems that are failing, safety areas. We have fire panels that are out of date that need to get replaced, alarm systems. We want to upgrade the schools so we've got a better entryways for people. Right now, we don't have a lot of kids in the school, but we will in the not too distant future. And unfortunately, when that happens, school shootings will probably return to America. Right now, I guess the one good thing about COVID right now is school shootings have taken a break, which I appreciate. But we need to harden our targets. We need to build better security for people getting into the buildings, build security cameras and that sort of thing. And so some of this will go into making these areas safer. We need to plan for growth. As you know, the city of Redmond continues to grow. The city estimates, the city government estimates that over the next 20 years, we will go from roughly 30,000 now to roughly 50,000. So we'll have a pretty dramatic increase over the next 20 years. That averages out being about 2.5 residents per day. As people come into the area, they bring their kids with them. So if we pass this bond, we're going to do some additions on a couple schools. So Vern Patrick Elementary, if you've been out there, you know when that building was originally built, it was designed with 4 wings. Pretty much all the elementary schools in Redmond have a similar design, most of them. They have kind of a central spine area that's got the gym, the offices, the cafeterias, that kind of stuff. And then they have wings that go out to the side with 6 classrooms each. So roughly 24 classrooms per school. And so the idea with this is when Vern Patrick was built, they didn't have enough money to finish it. So they cut a wing off and they cut a cafeteria off to save money. So what we propose to do is add that wing and cafeteria back onto that in those neighborhoods. There's a lot of growth happening, so it should really take in a lot of the kids that are coming into that area. Also, we've got quite a bit of building over in the north side of town, and so we'd like to put another wing on Tom McCall Elementary School, kind of a little building in between Tom McCall and Elton Gregory Middle School. That building will be a space that we can use primarily for elementary school students, but if we have overflows of middle school too, we can clean the elementary school kids out and reassign it to be a middle school. So it's a nice flexible space. Also got a cafeteria space in that. Really what you're getting is, that's about $10 million per spot per building, or sorry, $10 million total between the two buildings to go. And so it's around $35 million to build a brand new school. So really you're kind of getting half a school for a quarter of the price. So it's a pretty good value on that in terms of spaces. This says we just need to upgrade some of our HVAC systems, plumbing, roofs, electrical. And we have aging buildings, with these buildings without a little care and love, they fall apart, and in the long run, they cost more money to repair. This little map shows that everybody gets a little something. Some of them are major repairs. I think, out at Terrebonne Community School, for instance, that building's in pretty good shape, but we want to do some security work in the front of that. So that gets a lower amount of money. Hugh Hartman, for instance, needs an entirely new HVAC system, and that's a pretty expensive HVAC system, sorry. And that's a pretty expensive thing to replace, so we'll work through that. And City Middle School needs some huge upgrades to security. So lots of different sort of work needs to get done out there. Whoops. Uh-oh. Are you seeing the screen still? Can you guys see the picture of the school here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I lost it for a second. All right, here's some artists or some architects' illustration what this will look like. If you've been over to Tom McCall Elementary, again, you see this idea of the spine with the 4 wings. Here we're adding another wing, and this little building in the back is a cafeteria. There'll be kind of a front fence that goes across between Tom McCall and Elton Gregory to create that secure environment there. That's what it looks like just as an elevation view. And over Vern Patrick, again, you can see that design of the single spine with the wings. This all over here would be a new addition. So that's a cafeteria space right here, and these are 6 new classrooms. So that adds 12 classrooms to the school district with that. And again, here's kind of an elevation. If you've been over there, there's kind of a portable that sits in this area right now. So we take that out, update the school. So again, this maintains the current tax rate. But this is kind of step 1 and part of a 2-part plan. The idea is because Lynch Elementary School still needs to get replaced. And in 2018, that was the main focus. Well, it costs roughly $35 million to replace that school. So we could replace it all, but then we have no money to fix the rest of the place. However, an opportunity comes to us in 4 years. In 2024, the district pays off another outstanding bond that it has. And if we're able to reissue a bond on that exact same amount that people are currently paying, we can raise in today's dollars about $91 million. And that would give us the opportunity to completely replace Lynch Elementary and do major upgrades to a couple of our older buildings, other older buildings. So really what we're looking at doing is over 4 years, about $125 million of investment of work into the school's buildings without raising anyone's taxes. That's sort of the strategy. Our bond pack is out there, sending out letters and making phone calls and waving signs on the side of the street and putting things out. We've only got 2 weeks left, but if you'd like to help them out, we can give you some information. So that's the basic presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions you have.
So I have a couple.
Please.
I spent a career as an industrial architect, and I'm aware that the airflow exchange rates in a classroom are pretty low. So when you talk about upgrading air handling systems, are you going to try to actually move more air through a classroom, or are you just putting in a new fan?
Well, I am not an expert in HVAC systems, so I don't know that I can answer your question directly. What I know is we've got McKinstry Corporation, which is they do HVAC. They're so far been our major contributors in helping us know what needs to get replaced and work through it. I'm assuming we're going to put good systems back in to move air through it, but I could not give you the technical specs on that.
Yeah, because the point with this virus is to move more air,
Right.
improves the chance that kids don't catch it. But okay,
Right.
the second question I had was, I know that Mike McIntosh was very focused on raising the graduation rate. So I'm kind of curious what you think the impact of remote learning is going to have on the district's graduation rate.
Well, last year's graduation rate with remote learning was pretty good, and that was because the state had us give a lot of passes. I would say that we're going to have some real troubles coming into this year. We've got a lot of kids that are having a hard time engaging in remote learning,
Right.
and we're having to focus on it. There's going to be a lot of makeup once we finally get kids back in the building. We'll eventually get things back up, but I'm guessing this year that our graduation rates are going to drop lower than we'd like.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Mike, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How much of the bond will be going into Redmond High School?
I can look, if you look at our website, we have kind of a set of plans that have all the pieces laid out. couldn't tell you off the top of my head. However, if you go to our website, it'll say exactly how much money we're putting into each school and what the projects specifically are. Redmond High School is not real high on the priority list in terms of a lot of stuff. I know that we need to, about 5 years ago, they replaced half of the roof and they need to replace the other half of that roof. And so I think that's a major project on that one, but I'm not sure exactly how much is laid out for that particular building.
I have another question. Maybe you can address it, or maybe you can't. And because of the COVID stuff and changes in instructional method, there's been some discussion in some states and educational circles about maybe moving away from some of the things like we've had with the Carnegie Seat Unit and moving to more of a competency-based to try to deal with what may be the new reality in education.
Sure.
Have you heard any thought about doing any of that sort of stuff?
Actually, Oregon already has that system in place in competency-based, it's called proficiency-based learning or credit by proficiency. School districts, even at this time, can use competencies and proficiencies to award credits. Currently, the RPA does that here in Redmond. In my last school district, we were entirely a proficiency-based district as we kind of lined things out for what kids needed to know and give them credit for it. So it's certainly possible. However, structurally, it takes a lot of work to change that around. I would assume that we'll be moving into some of that to try and make up credits to work on getting some of those graduation credits, returned, to working through it. So it already exists. It's just a matter of implementing it.
Dr. Klein?
Yes. Hey, Josh.
Good to have you. Thank you again for coming and spending time with us and educating us. My question is in regards to kids being currently schooled.
Sure.
What does that look like? How have the teachers responded to the distance learning so far? Are they enjoying that? Or what's the dynamic there? And then the second part of that question is, do we have an updated timetable for kids returning to the classrooms?
Well, the answer to your second question is no. It's entirely based on the state's guidance and how the virus is performing here in Deschutes County. As they're fond of telling us every time we have an educational meeting, the virus sets the timeline. We don't set the timeline. And so it depends a lot about how we're responding to it. As of this week, we finally met the metrics for K3. So we're on the first week. We just finished the first waiting week to bring K3 back. If people in the community continue to wear masks and social distance, and we drop these cases down, then I think we've got a good possibility of bringing our K3 kids back in a month. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I was all ready to bring them back in a month ago, and then we had that spike that put through it. I thought I was able to get the high school kids back in too. I was pretty upset. Honestly, I was pretty upset when I couldn't get that done. Are the teachers enjoying distance learning? No, they hate it for the most part. We've had to teach them lots of new things. They've had to try and implement new software. We've spent a lot of money to make all that happen. And generally people are not enjoying themselves. They're learning things, how to teach new ways and work through it. However, I think everybody's in agreement that it's really not much fun and that it's not as effective. So I'd like to be able to give you a rosy answer, Josh, but as soon as we can get kids back at school, I'd like nothing better than that. I think we'd all find that to be working better.
Yeah, that'd be great for I think most people, right? But I have a follow-up question to that is what are the chances that, so say we establish what the metrics are and we get the K through 3 back in school, what does it look like with them remaining in school for the duration of the year? I mean, if there's a spike, could theoretically they go back to distance learning again?
Yeah, theoretically, although the state's indicating right now that once we get kids back in place, that they'd like them to stay. And so we'll be instituting cohort learning and our contact tracing with cohorts. And I think what we'll see at that point is when we have cases that will exclude groups of kids as opposed to the entire school district, which would be better. I don't know that you saw, Douglas High School down in the Roseburg area, Douglas County area, was able to get opened up a couple of weeks ago. And then they just had a case where they had to exclude a kid and the entire staff refused to come to work. And so they've had to shut that down again. So we'll no doubt deal with a little bit of that back and forth as well once we finally get it open.
Thank you.
You bet.
There, Michelle Duff, I have a quick question for you. I work with Rock Trails Treatment Services, and we provide mental health services for children, teens, adults, and families here in Redmond. And we know that there's been a huge issue with referrals, yet more and more people need those mental health services now more than ever. How is the school helping to identify those kiddos and their families, and then going through that referral process? How are they able to do that through this remote learning piece?
Well, it's a little more difficult with mental health. When we have mental health in the schools, and we do, the school district does a lot of mental health work. We're practically a provider on our own. And of course, it's fairly easy to do when you've got kids in school. And we're using some of the same processes. We have what are called RTI processes, response to interventions. When teachers have concerns about a child, and our indications really now are some of the things we have then, which are things like poor attendance, students not turning in work, just kind of when they're listless online, parent referrals. We bring those folks to our committees. And then we go through and we try to put them out to various resources we work on. We also, I don't know if you all are aware, but we do have small group instruction going on in the school districts. It's called limited small group instruction. Some of those small groups are actually counseling groups that will bring kids in to work with counselors. However, my guess is that we are certainly not catching everyone. I don't know if you know it, but around the state, for instance, child abuse reporting has dropped dramatically during COVID. And that's not a function of people not abusing their children. That's a function of teachers not being there to catch it and make those reports and work through it. And we know that's happening with mental health as well.
Okay.
Dr. Klein, a quick
Yes,
question for you. 2 quick questions. Have you seen, I'd heard that some families had moved into Redmond School District because they were displaced from the fires. Can you speak to that? And then the other question, we just finished, tried to finish the parent-teacher conferences at the high school level last week. It was a bit of a challenge. Any thoughts on how we can make that a little easier next time?
Sure. We've had some people move into the district from displaced because of the fires. We've done our best to enroll those folks. We went down to the Super 8 where a lot of folks were staying. We tried to enroll kids, and we found out that most people weren't interested in enrolling their kids in the Redmond School District. They're able to connect with their current districts online. Many of them are able to. So when we do have kids enroll, they fall underneath what's called the Mckinney-Vento Act, which is an act to help homeless students. And we work with every student that we can identify that needs help. So we've had a few, however, it hasn't been a high impact to our district. In terms of conferences last week, I know that our teachers worked on making lots of phone calls and connecting with folks and trying to share the information that they have. Part of the problem in this case, of course, is that we don't have as much information on each student to share as we normally would during this time of the year. It's been a little slower getting student work in. It's been a little slower kind of connecting with people. The whole distance thing makes the process clunky, for lack of better terms. And I don't know specifically to the feelings you had. Most of the principals that I've talked to felt like the process went fairly well. So I guess I need to know what you think didn't go well. That would be helpful for me, and I could bring that back.
Just being able to get through the links that they were sending. There was from what I understand, that if you were an outside person that didn't have the access through the school district firewall, for lack of a better word, you couldn't get through. And if you were from the school district side trying to get out, you couldn't get out.
I see. Yeah, those are some of the technical issues. We've had some issues with people outside of the district doing kind of what we're calling racial Zoom bombing, where you've got some people who have dropped into class and then saying all kinds of horrible, racial slurs and such. So we've made it fairly difficult to get in if you're not part of the system. So that might be what we've run into. I'll have to talk with our tech folks about what we're doing to work through that. Thanks for letting me know.
I have a question about high school science. I'm a retired high school science teacher. I know how I'd handle the didactic stuff, but I'm not sure how I'd handle labs. Anything being done in that area?
Yeah, we've got we have a online curriculum we're using, and it's got some virtual labs built in, but they're not great. Part of what we're doing is we're using our our limited small group instruction to bring kids in for groups of things. For instance, we're bringing kids in for band in small groups. We're bringing kids in for choir for small groups, and career tech ed, welding. Science is also with that. When we have experiments students need to work, they'll come in small groups and work through that. It's a little slower than we like, but it's kids get a little more personal attention that way.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, John.
All right, any final questions today?
I'm curious what people think of the bond proposal. Normally people kind of give me a yay or nay, thumbs up, thumbs down. How are people feeling about this idea?
I think it's a great idea. Good way to refinance and lower your budget.
All right.
It seems like a no-brainer because it's a no-cost increase, and we have a sign in our front yard. So there you go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I've already voted.
Oh, go ahead.
I think Naomi was going there.
I appreciated you coming back again today. I remember when you spoke with us. Before, and I've actually had the opportunity to share some informative feedback with people on the bond where they're like, no, they're just going to raise our taxes. And I'm like, actually, they're not. and this is how, because I sat through it and I learned and I took notes. So let me tell you. And they're like, oh, really? That's how bonds work. And that's how I can do it. And I think I shared in the last Zoom meeting, I don't have children, my partner and I won't, but it's still a really big piece of our family values and how we look at our overall financial profile and our community involvement. And so I had the chance to share all of that with a few people on account of you visiting with us. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Naomi. I appreciate you speaking up for us.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that
this is a good opportunity for folks to know what's going on in the community. And having you available is always a positive thing, even for you in the school district. So if you would like to consider becoming a regular member, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, send me the paperwork, Earl. Let me take a look at it. Let me see how to sell a kidney or anything. But yeah, I'd love to be part of the group.
It's on our website, so you can see it there.
All right, thanks, Dave. I'll take a look at it.
And your first year dues are waived, I think. Isn't that a special we're running?
Correct.
Special, nice. Nice, excellent.
No cost to the school district. I want to say the last bond that was tried and failed, part of it was my age group's fault. We didn't show up to vote. Those who have kids in the school, in the system, did not show up to vote. And it failed. It didn't fail by much, but it did fail. So it'll be interesting to see if our age group shows up this time.
Well, we hope so. We've done a lot of outreach to the parents of the group. We hope so. People, of course, are frustrated about online learning, and I understand that. I'm hoping that they can see past it, though, for this case. Kids are going to come back eventually, I promise. And we need to make sure the schools are in good shape for them.
You should have.
You know, I point out to the people that I know. I'm old enough that during the polio epidemic in the late 1940s, that schools had half-day sessions, and when we go to class, just half would go, and they would sit like, if you can picture a big checkerboard, we would sit like on the red square, so we're far more distant. And they had rules about what we could do with play. I just think we've got through it before, we'll get through this again.
That's great perspective, John. Yeah, that's what our rooms are going to look like this time. You know, I mean, high school kids are very excited to come back to school, but when they get there, they're going to find they have a closed campus and they have to wear masks and they have to be in a kind of a tight space. And so they're not going to like it as much as they'd hoped. However, we'd be glad to get them back in. So
we would too, as parents.
I'm sure.
All right. Well, Dr. Klein, thank you very much for coming back and speaking again today. We really appreciate it. We always enjoy having you.
Yeah, Rachel.
All right. So I will just wrap things up with the thought for the day. Show your character in hard times, so you are known for your character at all times. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you later.